Just a second before the earthquake explosion, I used all my strength to push Jasmine out. In her shocked gaze, I was buried under the collapsed house. When they dug me out, I was covered in blood, limbs broken. The desperate cries of people grew distant, but I could clearly see Jasmine's face. I knew I was about to die. I used my last breath to ask her, "After 30 years of marriage, did you ever love me?" Jasmine's expression stayed cold. She dodged the question and said, "Just hang on, the doctor is coming." I forced a pained smile. The answer was clear to me now. She didn't love me one bit, not even enough to comfort me before dying. The last bit of life drained out of me, and when I opened my eyes again, I was 30 years back. Given this second chance by fate, I decided not to get tangled with Jasmine again. But when she caught me on a blind date with another woman, she shockingly slashed her own wrist with a knife. Blood stained the ground, yet she smiled brilliantly. "Tim, do you want to know how it feels to watch the one you love the most lose their life? How much it can hurt your heart?" When I opened my eyes again, I was at my college graduation ceremony. I stared in disbelief at the busy, celebratory scene around me and realized I'd been reborn. Not far away, Jasmine was in a black designer dress, talking with leaders and company recruiters. In my previous life, for Jasmine, I made my life into a joke. Now, given the chance to live again, I promised to stay away from Jasmine and to never see her again. Just as I thought this, my roommate Mike slapped me on the back and winked, saying, "Tim, didn't you say you were going to confess to the goddess Jasmine today? You even wrote a love letter. What are you waiting for? You've been after her for so long, and with Evan finally studying abroad, don't miss this chance." I stared blankly at my roommate's face and instinctively put my hand in my pocket. Sure enough, I found a love letter and a small jewelry box. Yes, in my last life, I did plan to confess to Jasmine at the graduation ceremony. Jasmine was a famous physics prodigy at our school. Before graduation, she was already renowned for her research. She and Evan were the twin stars of our physics department. Everyone said that Jasmine and Evan were made for each other. But just when people expected to see them get together after graduation, Evan suddenly announced he was going abroad, leaving Jasmine behind. Because of this, Jasmine became the topic of gossip, labeled as the abandoned one. I couldn't bear it. I thought Evan didn't know what he had, and I wanted everyone to see how amazing Jasmine was. So I planned a confession, risking the embarrassment if she rejected me, and asked her to be my girlfriend. To my surprise, Jasmine agreed, and she became my wife. Jasmine wasn't just a genius. She was beautiful and a go-getter, the typical career woman. Everyone around, including my folks, said I got lucky marrying her. I used to think the same, but my past life taught me that Jasmine wasn't my blessing. She was my punishment. Married to me for 30 years, she'd never forgotten Evan. Though she fulfilled her duties as a wife and daughter-in-law every day, her heart was never with me. She never showed emotion to me, and I'd never seen her smile. It was like her soul left with him. Our marriage became a shackle and a constant struggle with life. Thankfully, there's still a chance to change fate. I casually responded, "What love letter? Don't talk nonsense. Jasmine and I are just classmates." I didn't notice Jasmine had already said goodbye to her associates and was behind me. She was holding a wine glass and suspiciously asked, "What love letter?" Before I could answer, Mike winked and betrayed me. "Tim said he likes you and is about to confess." He pulled the letter and box from my pocket and handed them to Jasmine, saying, "He's too shy, so I'm giving him a hand. Goddess, don't reject him too harshly." The jewelry box opened to reveal a platinum 4-leaf clover necklace. I quickly tried to take it back. "No, don't listen to him. This is for someone else." Just as I tried to cover that the necklace and letter were for someone else, I saw Jasmine's lips curve into a smile with dimples. "Thanks, I really like the necklace. The letter? I'll take it home and read it slowly." I was completely stunned. In my previous life, although Jasmine agreed to date me, she didn't accept the necklace and letter. She was always like that, indifferent. When I was with her, I would prepare surprises and gifts for her on holidays, but she never showed happiness. She'd always say this was kid stuff, and I shouldn't waste time and effort. I used to think it was her personality, but now I understand. She resisted because she didn't like me. As my girlfriend, accepting my affection was difficult for her. Married for 30 years, she always had a cold demeanor. But now, she accepted my gift and letter and even smiled at me. Suddenly, I had this inexplicable feeling, making me uneasy and panicked. My gut told me that Jasmine's completely different behavior could mean danger. I collected myself, taking the letter from her. I muttered quickly, "This is for someone else, it has nothing to do with you." Jasmine froze for a moment. For some reason, I seemed to see pain in her eyes, which were usually as cold as ice. I guiltily lowered my head, unable to meet her gaze. Luckily, at that moment, my classmate Linda came over, and in front of her, she pulled me away. Linda liked me, but I liked Jasmine. In my past life, she tried everything to win me over, but I was all about Jasmine. Today, she came to see me, hoping to make a last effort before graduation. So, after pulling me away right in front of Jasmine, she confessed her feelings. I was speechless. To be honest, Linda was not my type and never gave me that fluttering feeling. But after experiencing my past life's events, I finally understood that those heart races were just illusions. I loved Jasmine, but it had to be mutual. Otherwise, we'd just end up hurting each other. Before I could say anything, Linda interrupted me. "I know you don't like me much right now. That's okay. I'm willing to wait. You don't have to rush to reject me. Tim, I truly like you. You can take your time to understand and consider me. Once you sort out your feelings, let me know. Until then, I won't change how I feel about you." After the graduation ceremony, we left the hotel. I saw Jasmine standing by the roadside, saying goodbye to the school leaders and classmates. I don't know why, but I suddenly felt a mix of emotions. From now on, we'd each go our separate ways. She'd walk her path and I'd walk mine. In the future, she might have a boyfriend or even a husband, get married, have kids, or wait for her crush Evan to come back. But none of that has anything to do with me. It's like two lines crossing at a single point, then moving further and further apart. But I never expected that the next day, while visiting my dad's company, I would run into Jasmine again. I was completely stunned, unable to believe what I was seeing. In my past life, our company did want to recruit someone like Jasmine, but we didn't really stand a chance against those big companies with deep pockets. Due to Jasmine agreeing to my pursuit at the graduation ceremony, she stayed with our company. But I'd taken the love letter back. So why was she here again? Jasmine was in my dad's office and glanced at me as I walked in. I noticed that in my haste yesterday, I only retrieved the love letter but forgot about the clover necklace. Right now, the clover necklace was openly hanging around Jasmine's neck. She turned her attention back to my dad and extended her hand. "These are my terms. If you agree, I'd be happy to work for you." My dad was grinning from ear to ear and quickly waved me over. "Tim, what are you standing there for? From today, Jasmine's our company's manager. You're going to start working under her." I was shocked and blurted out, "Why?" Jasmine, with a straight face, responded, "Because I gave Ken a condition. The only way I'd stay is if you became my assistant." I was immediately upset. "Dad, how could you? You didn't even ask me." My dad glared at me. "Why would I ask you? I've worked hard to support you this far. If you'd learned enough in college to stand on your own, would I be relying on Jasmine now?" Jasmine turned down big company offers to join us. That's a blessing for our family. Do you want us to miss out on this opportunity and talent? From now on, learn from Jasmine. Don't make your mom and me upset. Jasmine knew how to turn things around, but I didn't understand why she was doing this. Now, the story is completely different from my past life. I couldn't figure out the key reason. Was it because I didn't confess to Jasmine? Facing my dad's stern look, I reluctantly agreed. "Okay, I'm willing to be her assistant for now." The office was buzzing with gossip. Everyone knew that from Jasmine's first day at our company, she'd turned me, the boss's son, into her lackey. To keep her as a senior talent, my dad even gave her a separate office. When I entered, I found out my desk was right next to hers. This immediately made me feel pressured and resistant. I instructed the employees, who were still setting up the office, move my desk out. I'm just an assistant. I shouldn't be in the manager's office. But then, Jasmine coldly stopped me. Why not? Ken wants you to learn from me. Didn't you get it? She had the employees move my desk even closer to hers. You'll work under my watch so I can see what you're doing and teach you as needed. In my past life, I wasn't interested in the company business, while Jasmine was a genius in it. While my parents criticized me for being idle, she could already skillfully join them at events and bring in projects. At that time, my parents often sighed, wishing they had a daughter like Jasmine. And their biggest praise for me was marrying such a capable wife. In front of Jasmine, I felt worthless. Even though it's my family's company, I seemed like someone who was mooching off them. That might be one reason Jasmine didn't like me. She always loved men like Evan who could stand shoulder to shoulder with her. I looked at her, speechless, and asked, "Can I refuse?" The thought of facing Jasmine's frosty expression daily was unbearable. I'd already seen enough in my past life. This time around, I didn't want to chase after someone cold. Jasmine, seeming to have the upper hand, smirked slightly. Nope, protests are futile. I felt like I was seeing things. Was she really smiling at me? After the colleagues finished setting up the office, they quickly left our battlefield. Sitting in front of the computer, pretending to work, a message popped up from my roommate Mike. "How's it going? I heard Jasmine started at your company. Are you two together now? Bro, you're amazing. When did you hook up with her? Don't tell me that love letter actually worked?" I looked at my roommate, who had been making my life difficult, and helplessly typed 3 words. "Get lost." At the same time, I glanced at the necklace around Jasmine's neck. Jasmine loves 4-leaf clovers, which is why I went to several luxury stores to pick out that necklace for her. In my past life, I gave her lots of gifts. Jade bracelets, diamond necklaces, designer bags, you name it. But she never accepted any. Jasmine's style is always simple. She'd use a hair tie bought from a street vendor for a few bucks for ages. But now, she was actually wearing that necklace. It was making me more uncomfortable the more I looked at it, so I couldn't help but ask her, "Can you give me the necklace back?" Jasmine paused her typing and replied, "Give it back? Do you usually take back things you've given people?" I was flustered. "That wasn't for you." Once again, I was at a loss for words. Jasmine continued, "Oh, then who was it for? Linda?" She turned away and added, as if she knew everything, "As far as I know, she doesn't like 4-leaf clovers. But you know who really does." Jasmine was always so confident and assertive, with the credentials to back it up. I was always at a loss around her because if I upset her, she might go tell my dad she didn't want the job anymore. I'd definitely be in trouble then. I focused on my work, but Jasmine stood up and placed something on my desk. I was surprised and instinctively looked up at her. Jasmine seemed a bit uneasy. With her back turned, she murmured, "It's a gift in return." It was a scarf, seemingly hand-knitted and a bit crooked. Suddenly, a memory hit me. When we were dating, I envied other guys whose girlfriends knitted scarves for them. Jasmine never did that. Whenever I brought it up, she'd just call me boring and said she didn't have the time. But now I don't get it. I awkwardly told her, "It's summer." Jasmine insisted, "Can't you wait until winter to wear it?" I pointed out, "But it's knitted like this." Jasmine turned back, displeased, shooting me a sharp look. "What about how it's knitted? You'd better not complain." I felt Jasmine definitely misunderstood something. She was treating me like a boyfriend. In the past, this would have thrilled me. But now I know better. This woman can act. She could pretend to be a caring wife in front of me and pose as a diligent daughter-in-law around my parents, yet never gave me her heart. All I got was her shell. In my previous life, there was an earthquake in our area. Jasmine and I were inspecting a factory when the boiler exploded because of the quake. In that critical moment, I pushed her out of harm's way, but got trapped under the rubble myself. I heard once that if you really love someone, you can't hide it. Even if you don't show it verbally, your eyes will betray you. But after 30 years of marriage, I never saw love in Jasmine's eyes. So, in my final moments, I asked her if she ever loved me, only to get an evasive response. That avoidance gave me my answer. I was done going down the same path, of being tormented by her cold demeanor for a lifetime. I sighed. Jasmine, I admit I once liked you, but now I don't. Do you know what it's like not to love someone anymore? It's like a pile of ashes, with no warmth left. I'm no longer interested in you. At the office, I got a call from my mom. She said a friend had set me up on a blind date. I sighed. Mom, I'm not even thinking about dating right now. Anyway, I just graduated. I'm young and not in a hurry. Why rush to a blind date? My mom wasn't having it. I don't care. It's my friend's daughter. A good match for our family. You have to go, even if it's just for my sake. Left with no choice, I said, all right, I'll check it out. Send me the address. As I was about to leave, Jasmine stopped me. Tim, you can't go on that date. You have me, so you can't meet other women. I brushed her hand off. Jasmine, I already explained everything to you. I hope you handle it well. I left the company and drove to the blind date location my mom sent. Shockingly, the person waiting for me was my classmate Linda. She winked playfully. Told you I won't give up. I went through your mom to secure this. With her on my side. Let's see if you dare refuse me? Over her shoulder, I spotted Jasmine. She had followed us. Seeing me face to face with Linda seemed to really upset her. Red-eyed, she clutched the necklace and asked, You really meant this for her? I avoided her eyes. I told you before it wasn't yours. You just didn't believe me. Jasmine, eyes brimming. If you didn't love me, why did you save me during the earthquake? My mind went blank. Jasmine had been reborn too, but before I could react, she took out a knife from nowhere and slashed at her own wrist. The wind blew her hair as she smiled brightly against the sunlight. Tim, do you want to know how much it hurts to watch the one you love lose their life? Jasmine ran the knife across her wrist with decisiveness. In an instant, blood splattered, and my heart leapt into my throat. I rushed over to her, checking her wounds and yelling at her. Are you crazy? Do you have a death wish? Jasmine just smiled, raising her bloody hand to stroke my cheek, murmuring, I knew it, you still care about me. You're worried about me. I ignored her, my hands shaking as I pulled out my phone to call for an ambulance. In the hospital room, Jasmine lay there pale and frail, curled up in a ball. Seemed like she had a nightmare. Sweat started forming on her forehead. Finally, she called out my name in a panic. Seeing me still there, she was instantly relieved and overjoyed, holding my face and murmuring, Tim, it's so good you're here. She hugged me tightly, nestling into my embrace. Don't ever leave my side again. I pushed Jasmine away and stood up, putting some distance between us. Jasmine, can you not do this? Last life, we tormented each other enough. Now, fate's giving us a chance to start over. Let's just let go of each other. I'll set you free and you set me free, okay? Jasmine frowned. In my last life, that expression was what I feared most. Jasmine had a classic poker face, never showing any emotion. Whenever she was upset with me, just a frown would leave me anxious, making me surrender. But now we're just passing strangers. The closest we are is classmates or colleagues. After a while, she softly asked, What do you mean set you free? Are you really going to be with her? Blame me for ruining your date with her? I turned away, avoiding her gaze. No matter what, I won't be with you. Honestly, with your skills, you could totally go abroad with Evan. With the market and transport so advanced now, it's not like going abroad means you'll never come back. If you go with him, you'll have a better future. You'll get what you want. Jasmine shut her eyes, holding back her emotions. I know that's how she reacts every time she thinks of Evan. Loving him but having to face the harsh reality that he just left her behind. Wanting to seek him out but unable to lower herself enough to go to him. So, she struggled with it her whole life. I finally said, Linda's great. My parents like her too. She can give me respect and love that I couldn't get from you. Being with her, I might find true happiness. So, take care of yourself. I left the hospital and got a call from Linda. She wanted to know how the date went. Over the phone, I could almost hear her heart pounding with nerves. And in the end, I told her sorry. What I said to Jasmine in the hospital was all lies. I never planned to be with Linda. The The past life taught me, love is love, and if you don't love someone, don't pretend. Knowing I don't love her but forcing it, what's the difference between me and the Jasmine from last life? Knowing the pain of not being loved, I won't become a perpetrator, inflicting that pain on Linda. I went to a bar, got so drunk I wasn't even aware of myself. Next time I woke up, I found myself in Jasmine's house. She got discharged early with those injuries. Looking around, maybe she picked me up from the bar? I caught a whiff of food, got curious, and followed the scent. Saw Jasmine in the kitchen cooking. Now that was a rare sight. Back then, Jasmine wouldn't even wash her own rice. Even if I was sick, all I got was the maid's cooking. Past life, all I wanted was to hold her, listen to her. Like every other couple on earth, I wanted to taste the food she made, hear her call me honey sweetly. But she never did. She brought her career-minded attitude home. At home, she was still my boss and I was the subordinate who followed orders. Jasmine clearly wasn't used to cooking. She could come up with the toughest physics equations in the world and create world-changing experimental devices. But facing ingredients, she looked like she was facing a formidable enemy. She put washed vegetables into the pan. Splattering oil burned her arm. Her first attempt at cooking failed. She overcooked everything, and it got burnt. Jasmine took a deep breath, tossed the burned food, and tried again. This time, she got the timing right, but the seasoning was too much, turning out so salty she spat it out. After 6 or 7 tries, she finally created something halfway decent. That's when she noticed me standing in the door watching. Jasmine didn't explain, she just said, "It's late. Let's eat." I was about to decline and leave when she added, "It's been a while since you had a meal with me." Actually, that should have been my line. Jasmine used to be busy, managing the company, meeting clients. She rarely ate at home. Even on our anniversaries, it was the same. Looking back, in over 30 years of marriage, face-to-face meals were rare. I sat with Jasmine in the living room, eating the mush she made. Her eyes reddened, and she mumbled, "It's nice, having a meal with you." I frowned in frustration. "Jasmine, what are you trying to do?" She looked at me, put down her utensils, and said, "Nothing. I just realized now I got so much wrong before. I thought lots of things didn't matter and ignored your feelings. Now I want to experience it all over again. See what being your wife feels like. Tim, I did miss out on a lot with you. Now I want it all back. Will you give me another chance?" I wasn't willing, no way. Through all the ups and downs in my past life, I thought we were partners, supporting each other like true spouses. But it turned out I was the only one who caught feelings, who took it seriously. I got too caught up in my own story, while she was just watching from the sidelines, playing along in this romance game. Now, whatever the reason, if she wants to come back, I'm not going down that path again. I left Jasmine's place and quit my job. The result? My dad gave me an earful, naturally. I knew you couldn't get anything done. I had you working with Jasmine, hoping you'd improve, and look at you now. Just days in and you're done? Look at Jasmine, and now look at you. How did I end up with such a useless son? Then he pulled me aside, whispered, "I can see Jasmine likes you. She's staying at our modest little company because of you. It's a blessing we couldn't have prayed for. Even if you have to work yourself to the bone, keep her here." Even my mom got in on it. "I heard Jasmine likes you." "Huh? Why didn't you say so earlier? Then I wouldn't have to set up these blind dates for you." I scratched my head and asked, "Mom, didn't you not like the idea of me and Jasmine together?" When I was pursuing Jasmine before, my mom warned me about girls from outside. "Just mess around," she said, "but they'd never be welcome in our home." But now she eyed me and said that was back then. Now Jasmine's got quite the reputation, got skills too. You know the saying, once you ignored me, now I'm out of your league. She's a strong, independent girl. Be lucky if she likes you. I'd love a daughter-in-law like her. No way was I listening to their bad advice. If they won't let me quit, I'll just play dead, right? I stopped going to the office and started working on new materials with my friends. Contrary to what my dad thinks, I'm not useless. I just prefer research over business. In my past life, a massive earthquake devastated our city. I want to develop a super strong material to prevent that disaster in 30 years. Jasmine stopped me in my tracks again. I sighed, yeah, I'm a no good guy. Go ahead, rich girl, ignore me. Don't want to work at the company? Tell my dad you're quitting. I won't stop you. Jasmine glanced around at our humble little lab, raised an eyebrow, and asked, you really think you have the skills and resources to develop new anti-seismic materials? Classic physics whiz, she saw right through what we're doing in an instant. But what could I do? My dad cut me off financially, always calling me a good-for-nothing when I talked about my research ideas. After all, we rarely have earthquakes here on the plains. But Jasmine offered, come back with me, I'll help smooth things over. I ignored her. I promised myself to cut ties, so I wouldn't seek reasons to stay involved. Jasmine was poison to me, the type that people say is like slow suicide. Days passed without hearing from Jasmine, no sign of her. I felt something was off. I snuck back to the office, only to hear that she'd gone abroad to see her beau, Evan. Well, isn't that just what I wanted? She can take her own path now, and I can finally walk mine without headaches. Remembering her odd behavior lately only now struck me as silly. I'd secretly hoped she was having a change of heart, honestly wanting to start fresh. But now I see I was just a pawn in her game, a side plot for her and Evan's romantic drama. Now that Evan reached out to her, she had the perfect excuse to leave for him. Without any word for half a month, I spent that time dazed. By day, I'd lose myself in a friend's lab, and by night, I'd drown in drink at the bar. Linda found me once, yanked my drink, and said, stop it. The Tim I know isn't this pathetic. Like her? Go after her. Bring her back from abroad. Drinking like this doesn't help. In my drunken haze, I asked, like who? Linda rolled her eyes. Jasmine, of course. Everyone knows from school. Right. I've chased after Jasmine for forever. From the moment I first saw her during freshman orientation, I was hooked. Over 4 years, I turned into her devoted follower. Everyone just waiting for the joke to implode. Sure, they make a perfect couple, and I'm just proof of their love. I shook my head hard and retorted, wrong. I don't like her, not one bit. Linda scoffed. Oh, please. You can lie with your lips but not with your heart. Go chase her before she and Evan officially get back together. You'll regret it if you don't. When Linda left, I ordered more drinks, getting blackout drunk. Leaving the bar, I clumsily hit a railing, nearly biting my tongue in pain. Staring at my scraped hand, I let out a sad laugh. People forget wounds once they're healed, but if they hurt enough, how could you forget? Even if it's not painful anymore, the fear and shadow remain, just like with me and Jasmine. Now, I don't hate or blame her. I'm just scared. She went to Evan, that's great. They make the perfect match, destined lovers. In our little story, I've always been just the sidekick. But I never expected Jasmine to come back, let alone with Evan. Everyone thought she'd taken Evan's olive branch and went abroad to be with her love. But here she was, bringing Evan's entire research team to my dad's company. Even after my dad finished the meeting, all excited and happy, my mind was blank. Dad agreed to research new materials and put up billions for our project. When we left the meeting room, Jasmine stopped me. She looked at me and then burst out laughing. I glared at her. What's so funny? Jasmine said, I heard that while I was away, life was pretty tough for you? I hardened. Who said that? Without you around to bother me, I've been perfectly happy. But Jasmine said, well, I wasn't happy. Every single day, every minute and second abroad, I missed you. Jasmine never spoke this kind of sweet talk, but now she did it so easily without a hint of shame. She looked innocent. What's shameful about saying love words to my husband? I boiled over again. Who's your husband? Jasmine playfully blinked. You are. Your parents have agreed. Once we develop the new material, they'll announce our marriage to the world and recognize me as their rightful daughter-in-law. You think you can back out? I was completely speechless. Jasmine, why are you doing this? Jasmine cut me off with a sad tone. Because I've liked you from the start. I was stunned, almost frozen like stone. Jasmine likes me? From the start? How's that possible? Then, Jasmine said, "Do you remember the day we started as freshmen in college?" Back then, Jasmine's family wasn't well off. She was skinny and weak, and her clothes looked pretty shabby. The guys meeting new students didn't offer her a hand. There was a girl from a wealthier family who kept picking on Jasmine, calling her a country bumpkin. I stood up for her, helped her with her luggage, and got her settled in. Later, Jasmine used her abilities to prove everyone wrong. Over 4 years in college, she went from a little sparrow to a golden phoenix. But I always remember that day, the first moment I saw you, and the moment you reached out to me. That's when I started liking you. I blinked, processing it. No way. You were always so cold to me. I was mad back then, thinking Evan was blind, and I wanted everyone to see how amazing Jasmine was. So I made up my mind to climb higher, to prove myself worthy of you. Jasmine took a deep breath and said, "I could have accepted your pursuit, but then what? Your family wouldn't agree, and a love without blessings from family would hurt us both. Even deep love can't withstand constant wear and tear. I didn't want to play around with you and just watch you marry someone else." She paused, her gaze becoming intense and determined. "I want to be accepted into your family, as your rightful wife." For a moment, I was speechless, never imagining her coldness was for this reason. As she spoke, Jasmine cried. Knowing her for years, I'd never seen her cry before. "Tim, even after marrying you, I never dared to let up. I wanted to be your perfect wife and be the perfect daughter-in-law in your parents' eyes. I thought that was the way to secure our marriage, but I wasn't prepared for what happened next." Thinking of that devastating earthquake, she closed her eyes in despair. "You saved me but died as a result. Do you know what it's like watching the one you love die right in front of you? I was dumbfounded back then, thinking if you were gone, I'd go with you. Of course, I liked you." Finally, she smiled and asked, "Not long after your rebirth, I was reborn too. Didn't you wonder why?" There's only one answer. Not long after I died, Jasmine died too. My heart felt like it was being cut to pieces, unable to accept this truth, so I held her hand tightly. At last, I lowered my head, feeling miserable. "I thought you'd gone abroad for Evan and wouldn't come back." Jasmine sighed helplessly. "Who's spreading rumors about Evan and me? We're just strategic partners. Evan's got a girlfriend abroad. Why else do you think he went without looking back? He invited me to join his team overseas with a good offer, but I said no. This time I went abroad just to bring him back." She smiled at me. "Didn't you always want to stop that disaster 30 years from now? So do I. But with just the two of us, it's impossible." Jasmine reached out to me. "In our past life, I couldn't keep you. This time, let's work together. Okay?" Looking at her tear-stained face, I took her hand and hugged her. In our last life, our unspoken love made us miss a lifetime. This life, I hold her hand tight, with no more hesitation.